What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow, we are back here on this Monday. LOL, when we said we'd be podcasting Friday, and it's like 3 days after Friday. As usual, things came up in our life, but we are 2 days from the second episode of Survivor, season 34, Game Changers. This past week, we saw the 2-hour-long season premiere of this season and the 500th episode of Survivor. I think overall it was a great episode. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and I don't know about y'all, but Maryland is going to be getting part of a nor'easter in the next, day or so, which means that I don't have school tomorrow, which means that I work. Survivor is going to be lit. Anyways, so this episode began in, traditional Survivor fashion. Everyone on a boat.
Yeah, I think the episode overall, it was a good coverage of everyone. I'm pretty sure we saw at least one talking scene or confessional from all of the 20 castaways. I think it was a good episode. Alyssa and I were just talking, but I said the first boot would be Sierra, so I got that right. I was very happy when that happened. But then for the second boot, I was really, really sad that Tony went so soon.
I was not, but my first Troyzan. I forget who I said for my second boot, but I put Tony pretty down low on my list. I was not super pleased with where he ended up, but I wasn't disappointed either.
Yeah, and I think we'll mention that when we go through the episode, but just in general, wow, Tony, the great Tony, probably one of the best players of all time, if not one of the top three, is out second. And I don't know if that was a good thing for this season or a bad thing, because definitely it could just be foreshadowing the level of gameplay that we're gonna see coming up, or it could be all of the ratchet people are gonna be left at the final five, and we'll get a sort of shitty tribal council. But alas, we'll have to see how it goes.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
Anyways,
so like Alyssa was saying, the boat. Jeff, I really like these challenges where they start off on the boat and stuff. So Jeff starts by asking everyone questions, and we see he asks Ozzy a question, and these people are playing many years apart, all of these big name players, and Ozzy's he has nightmares about it, and I feel that's really relatable. Actually, we can't relate to it, but I feel if you do play the game and you're so close to winning, or you're always going to second guess the choices you made during your season. And I feel that might be a big thing we might see this season, where players who have played multiple times and made it really far are very cognizant about their actions this time.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really important for all of these people, especially the people who did have a long time in between playing seasons. I was talking with someone the other day about how players who play back-to-back seasons might end up making the same mistakes twice, and the two people that really come to mind for that are Amanda Kimmel and Russell Hantz. They both played back-to-back seasons. They both got very far in their seasons, but then ultimately they both failed to win the game. So it's enough time to reflect on what you did wrong and right is really important. And I think that it's been long enough for most of these people that they'll definitely be able to make something of their past mistakes rather than letting the same thing happen to them again.
Yeah, and definitely on the flip side of that, we don't want to see a Stephen Fishback in Second Chance, where he's so focused on his past mistake of letting JT, the golden boy, stay in the game too long, and then he was very focused on just getting Joe Anglim out. So I really hope we see a balance of yes, thinking past on your past mistakes, but also not being so stuck in one mindset of I need to do this one thing different, but being very versatile. I feel will be good for all these returning players. And I mean, also during this time for the question and answer session, Jeff is talking. We see JT gets a question, and then about being a winner on this season, and then JT sort of maybe foreshadows, hopefully, he's I'm not Sandra isn't going to be the only two-time winner this season. And I'm like, hey, boy, like, I would be fine with a JT win.
Yeah, I think that JT win definitely would have been preferable to a Tony second win, just because, I don't know, JT's so likable. I like that guy. And I feel like part of it is also like oversaturation of certain players. Like if you see a certain player too much, it can get really boring. Had one season of Tony. It's like his personality is so big that you can reach like Tony saturation very quickly.
No, yeah. So like I just rewatched Survivor Kagayan with some friends, and like I don't know, I really just like wanted to see Tony's antics, and we saw some of it this episode, which we'll get into, but I feel like Tony's just such good TV. He's really good at the show. But yeah, definitely for JT, I feel like this is a good time for him to be back, whether it was like maybe not this season, but if he did come back for an all winners as well. I feel like the other thing with JT is that he sort of is like very stuck in season 20. I feel like JT, you know, the whole like giving Russell Hanson idol and everything, I feel like this is on his mind a lot, whereas he doesn't really think of Tokan Chains a lot. He really thinks of his mistakes in season 20. So I don't know. I feel like JT, out of like all the big name people like Sari, Ozzy, Tony, Sandra, I feel like JT's making it the furthest. And we've mentioned this multiple times.
Yeah. I think what we've said about JT still stands, but I think that Ozzy had a really interesting moment, like after Jeff was done wrapping up with all the questions, because there was the toolkit that was out in the water, and as soon as like Jeff like said, "Oh, there's a toolkit that you can swim to," everyone was like, "Nah, we ain't doing that. Ozzy's here," and Ozzy was like, "Okay, I'll go swim."
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. That part was really interesting. Ozzy's the only one to go out, like to go out to get the cool toolkit. And then we also see Malcolm have like the Malcolm Haley conversation of like, you know, like you were saying, Ozzy's here, like we're just gonna starve or whatever. So I mean, Ozzy gets the toolkit during this really cool like intro boat challenge, which I really like. It's really hectic and you see people fighting. And I also really like
Ozzy wasn't the only one to go get the toolkit, though.
yes,
Caleb
for
tried.
a long time. Caleb, I'm just SMHing so hard. Caleb jumps in the water like it seems like a short, like medium amount of time later. Like, what the hell, Caleb, are you doing? I feel like, I don't know. I don't really like Caleb.
Might have had a chance against Ozzy if he had like, as soon as he saw Ozzy go in, he also went in. But like, since he gave Ozzy so much of a head start, it was kind of like
Yeah,
stupid
like
waste of his time, especially
Caleb,
since
what
there were
was the
other
point?
things on the boat that he could have grabbed.
Exactly. I was like, Caleb, what's the point of like jumping in? I feel like throughout this episode, I don't know. I feel like my Caleb liking has gone way down. I feel like Caleb is very like maybe cocky and think he's like among the Survivor greats, but I'm like, dude, you didn't do anything on your season.
Yeah, I disagree with that. So
Like I don't even know. Like I just want to see him get voted out because he, like even in preseason stuff, he's like Sandra doesn't deserve to be here. Like Tony's not a game changer, and I'm like, dude, you never went to tribal council. You were medevaced, and like you played Big Brother. Like what else? You didn't even play Survivor.
I feel like people are like mistakenly correlating Big Brother and Survivor, and I think we've talked about this in like other episodes, how like Survivor has an additional element because you're not sitting in a house doing whatever it is you do on Big Brother.
Yeah. So I mean, I think this boat challenge was really neat. It's the same way they started Survivor season 1 Borneo. So from 1 to 500, how cute. We see everyone like grabbing all the stuff. It's really funny. Andrea lifts up like a crate, and under it is like a secret advantage paper. And Andrea, our girl, or my girl, doesn't, or no, she's both of our winner picks. She does not pick up the secret advantage, and Sierra Dawn freaking Thomas gets it.
I just gotta say, we find out later in this episode that the advantage is the legacy advantage again. And I don't know. When I saw that it was a legacy advantage, I kind of groaned.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about that right now. It's a new legacy advantage. you can get immunity either at 13 or 6 people left. And like you're saying, like, I don't know, I don't really like this advantage because nobody knows about it, first of all. So it doesn't really have that aspect of like getting something where everyone knows about it, so it sort of puts a target on your back and you have to play towards that. But like this has no freaking strategy to it. Like personally, I feel like if you're around at 13, you should play it just in case. Like you might not even be around at 6, so then you're just holding this piece of paper for nothing.
For me, it's just like it's an immunity idol that no one ever thinks has no ramifications and is like time, which like the from only having 2 specific times you can use it isn't like enough of a reason to give it. It just seems really overpowered and really strange to me. I don't like it. I think that like an extra vote advantage or like a steal a vote advantage would be good, especially because those never like seem to work out the way that people anticipate they're going to work out. So,
and even like if Sierra Dawn Thomas is at 13 or 6 and she plays it like she could play it like Ken played it. Ken was in no danger of going home or anything, but like he just was like immune in the freaking tribal council. Like it could have no very like ramifications if she does play it like at the right time. Like I don't know, I want to see an advantage that fucks up other people's games.
yeah. So legacy advantage to not fans here.
Yeah, so she finds that on the intro boat challenge. We go to see the 2 separate tribes bonding. On Orange Tribe, we see, I think this is so funny and like such like cuteness. Tony runs off looking for an idol, and I thought that was just funny TV. But at first I was like, no, Tony, like you're making yourself a bigger target than you are, like running off like a crazy dude into the fucking forest to find idols. But then I'm like, on the other hand, I feel like he can't change his perception of himself like as a super great like strategic player. Like, so might as well go balls to the wall and do this stuff.
I just think it's so funny because Tony was like expecting people to like chase him or whatever, and then everyone else was just kind of like, what the fuck? Like no one really cared because they were like, at least now we know he's probably gonna have an idol. So it's like, I think that people just didn't care enough about Tony. Like not that they didn't care, but just like they were kind of already done with his antics.
Yeah, like we see Caleb and Sandra go follow, and like we see for like a small amount of time here, maybe a Sandra-Tony alliance working together. And I'm like, yes, like this is everything I wanted. I want to see like the 2 best players in Survivor work together. Like Sandra-Tony, that would be freaking OP. But now looking back on it, I'm like FML. Like that would have been such a good alliance. 2 powerhouses. I feel like they could have dominated the game.
Yeah, I feel like I understand why they see each other as threats. Like, it's kind of obvious. But at the same time, it would have been so much easier for them to, like, continue working together until it was no longer mutually beneficial. And, like, I don't know. It just didn't seem like very good, like, logical thinking to me. Like, it seemed like everyone was playing a little too emotionally for their own good. And I feel like sometimes that tends to happen in the earlier episodes of this season because people haven't quite gotten back into like the Survivor groove yet, I guess you could say.
No, yeah, like I definitely feel this. I think we'll bring it up later when we talk about the 2nd episode of the premiere. I don't know. I feel like the Tony Sandra thing, it's too premature, and we can definitely talk about it down the line, but that's just my like first thought of this.
I agree.
Nice. Wow.
We disagree on. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking of like 2 big names like going at each other already, we see an Ozzy versus Cirie kind of brawl beginning, maybe. So we see that Ozzy doesn't trust Cirie from Micronesia. So 8 years ago, but then it's like 8 years ago, and they can both remember how many years ago it was. So I'm like, LOL, like, is it really not a problem, you know, if they both remember how long ago it was.
I mean, if you just go by season number 34 minus 16 divided by 2. So I feel like it's not actually that difficult, but whatever. But I feel like both of them, Micronesia was just such season. So I'm kind of biased here, but it was such an interesting season, and I feel like it's one of those things where if you played in it, never forget it. And then Ozzy had that whole thing with Amanda, so I feel like Micronesia was just a season of Oscar.
LOL. Yeah, but yeah. Ozzy is like telling everyone, oh, Cerie's not a physical player, like we should vote her out. And then like Ty gets in the middle of Cerie and Ozzy, and I'm like, LMFAO, Ty, like get your ass voted off this island also. Like you and Caleb just leave right now because like I don't even know what the hell you're trying to do. Ty is trying to be like the middleman. Then he realizes like he done goofed trying to be the middleman. And I'm like, SMH.
SMH indeed. I just feel like it doesn't behoove you to go into this game already with someone you're refusing to play with or someone that you're wary of. Like, unless you have like, not to say that Cerie isn't a legitimate threat, but like, let it be. And I feel like it'll just be kind of anticlimactic if they like end up voting each other out, because like, wow, Ozzy gets his revenge, big deal. Or like, wow, Cerie screwed over Ozzy again, big deal.
Yeah, I feel like
I don't know.
I feel like for Ty, it's like I think Ty mentions it also, but it's or someone, maybe Zeke or something. They mention how it's too early to align with like the person who might be first out. So everyone is like sort of like wary of Cerie, but I think Cerie making it past these 2 votes, so she's going to be in a tribe swap on a tribe of 6 next episode. So it'll be 3 tribes of 6 from 2 tribes of 9. Yeah, I think Cerie could make it like pretty far if she's on a good tribe of 6. So I think she's good for now if things go her way.
Yeah, I feel like a tribe swap is going to be either very beneficial or very poor people. Like another person who could stand to benefit a lot from this tribe swap would be Aubrey. That on the next time on Survivor portion of this episode.
So, I mean, I guess to round out this whole Ozzy and Cerie thing, we see Cerie talking with a lot of people being like trying to get numbers, and she talks to Debbie. And maybe it's just freaking wrong, but all of these people are annoying as hell now. Debbie was being real annoying this episode. She's mentioning all her jobs and everything again, and I'm like, ha ha ha, that was like quirky the first time, but like I'm sort of over it now. And she can't pronounce Cerie. She keeps saying like Cherie, like Shireen. And I'm like, girl, how can you not pronounce this name? Yeah. I mean, it's not like you just met her the first time. You probably have seen her on TV or something. Like, come on, Debbie, get it correct.
People don't mispronounce other people's names on Survivor, or like what really pisses me off is when people continually spell people's names wrong when they're voting for them at Tribal, especially like when Sierra and Sierra were still both on the thing. Your spelling of Sierra is important. Well, it would have been if they had both been there at the same time. But you get what I mean? Like, I've been using the word behoove a lot. It doesn't behoove you to like misspell someone's name. Now they're gonna think that you're an asshole and you're stupid.
No, yeah. So Sierra went home, and then now we just have Cerie, Sarah, Sierra left. We need to get rid of all the people with the names that sound too similar.
Only one can survive.
Cherie. Ugh. LOL. So, I mean, going back to, I guess, Tony, he had a lot of screen time, I feel like, the first episode, which maybe was like foreshadowing to the second episode boot. But like, he was such good TV with his like underground spy bunker. He was like like saying people would be looking for spy shacks above ground since that's what he did in season 28, not an underground bunker. And we see him like a crazy dude, like kicking up dirt and like trying to build an underground bunker. Like I wanted to see that play out. What would that look like? Like it would have been so good.
I just think he didn't really think about the logistics of that. Like his spy shack was fairly easy to get into and out of. Like the spy bunker, I feel like would not have been as easy to get into and out of.
Yeah, like I want to know how this works because it's like, how do you build underground? And like, would you just lay there and stick leaves on top of yourself? Like, what?
Yeah, but Tony, I
Oh,
feel like he had a good position for his spy bunker, but I would have done something like in a tree, maybe.
ooh,
I don't know.
a flying spy shack. We should get these copyrighted,
Sky
Alyssa.
shack. It's a sky spy shack.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like if Tony did last long on this season, he would drive himself like crazy. We could already see how he's probably not going to sleep this season. Like he didn't even sleep much his first season. He was going to go legitimately crazy this season if he was still on the show.
Yeah.
No.
But so for everyone that Tony wasn't there, I feel like Tony would just give me heartburn real quick.
Very true. I mean, yeah. So we can talk about the rest about Tony after we get through the whole Sierra first boot. I mean, I feel like Tony's boot maybe overshadows Sierra, so we got to give her the time she deserves. I feel like Sierra looks really cute this season. I feel like this was like the most pretty she's looked out of all 3 of her seasons. I was sad.
That is irrelevant, Rachel. We are not talking about how pretty female characters look. We're talking about how she was eliminated because
okay, yes.
we saw her as a strategic threat. I feel like that really needs to be emphasized. People voted her out because she was the weakest threat. And I don't know, this made me feel good for my girl Sierra. Like I was like, threat, I like her. And I was kind of disappointed that she went home fairly early. Like I get why, because she was a threat. I was happy that people eliminated her early because she was a threat and not just because she was an easy boot. Like, I feel like if Troyzen had been eliminated the way I thought he was going to be, it would have just been because he was like an easy boot, someone that was like kind of obvious to knock off first. So I was glad that eliminated for like a good reason.
No, yeah, I definitely like feel that. Like that's like 100%. When I was doing my boot list, I was like, from perceptions of Sierra from her last season, especially how she wants everyone to make big moves, and Jeff Varner freaking dropped the Sierra, someone who voted out her mom thing. I was like, shots. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like Alyssa and I don't look at like spoilers or anything, so we don't know the boot list and blah, 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 blah. We did not know Sierra was going home first, but that's just like what I was feeling. So I don't know. We sort of saw it at like the beginning of this episode where Sierra was sort of name dropping, like, oh, you know, maybe we should vote out Tony or Caleb because Caleb is Tony's right-hand man and stuff like that. And I was like, hashtag no. I feel like this, I mean, they probably didn't show like everything that was happening on the island. You know, other people probably name dropped as well, but we didn't see that because it wasn't part of the storyline for this episode. But I feel like definitely them showing that, it sort of sealed her fate. And I mean, I don't know. I really thought when I was doing my boot list that Sierra would go first because it was like a Vetus 2.0.
Yeah. I feel like one thing that's necessary to mention about this is the fact that Michaela got real frothy. Real frothy when she learned that, like, she was the one that Sierra was going to be voting for. I, for a moment, was like, oh, maybe Michaela's going home because, like, she was real angry and everyone else was like, whoa, calm the fuck down.
No, like, exactly. Like, I feel like Michaela can be very strategic and she's obviously very good at the physical challenges as we saw last season. But I feel like Michaela needs to freaking control herself, like for freaking real, like calm down. Everyone thinks Michaela's a firecracker now and this is their first impression of you, girl. Like, like you do not know these people, and now they think you might be like low-key crazy or willing to like blow up plans because you're so like hot and cold one second to the next, which I don't know. I don't really think bodes well for Michaela, but I was like, I don't feel like Michaela's going home based on like the preseason like interviews and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like Michaela like isn't like, I feel like she can be a good Survivor player, but like right now she's not a good Survivor player.
Yeah, I feel like she's one of those people that needs a couple of years to mature. But I have a good personality to have on this game, especially because like when everyone else is busy looking at it like a game of chess, I feel like Michaela can kind of be the wild card that screws up everyone else's game, even if it is really well planned.
Yeah, I feel like Michaela will make it far. Hopefully this is what we said last season too when Michaela got voted out, I feel like, in our podcast. But Michaela needs to freaking learn how to control her face and her emotions. And like, I don't know, people are like, Michaela can't lie very well and stuff like that. So I feel like that's something she needs to work on. And but like, other than that, I feel like she can go far in this game. And I mean, speaking of people that might go far, I feel like Malcolm was getting a lot of screen time this episode. He basically had a confessional for every big major moment. He talked about like the boat thing. He talked about like the tribes. So I don't know. I feel like this is either good or bad for Malcolm, but I'm leaning towards good. Like Malcolm will go far.
Yeah. And I like Malcolm, so I'm not upset that he's going far. I would not be upset with Malcolm. Malcolm does win. This is my official endorsement of him.
Yes, Malcolm, cutie boy. So, immunity challenge, the first one, it's like a paddle boat thing. You swim and get the key, and then you come back, and then you do a like wheel puzzle. And this is one ugly ass like immunity idol, I feel like. It's a freaking like like what? Like a mask for like scuba divers in like the olden ages. Like, I don't know. I would not want that.
Yeah, I wonder what their 2-part immunity idol is going to be for when they split into 3 tribes. That'll be fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, Ozzy swam for Blue Tribe, like, of course, I guess. And then we see Haley swimming for Orange Tribe, and I thought this was really interesting for her. I guess it's, like, good that she's proving herself, that she's, like, physically able to do the swimming and stuff like that. And I feel like if she knew, like, I would know, like, I would want to do the swimming because, like, I'd be a strong swimmer. So if Haley knew, like, she would want to do the swimming because she's a strong swimmer, like, kudos for her. Like, she's proving herself to, like, a tribe where many people probably think she shouldn't be on this season or, like, she's going to be overlooked and stuff like that. So I think it was good for Haley.
Yeah, I think it's good for her too, but I feel bad for anyone who has to go up like swimming against Ozzy. Like I felt bad for Caleb, I felt bad for Haley, just because like I feel like everyone knows Ozzy as like a fish boy. Bad for them to contend against that.
So I feel like definitely Haley held her own in this, which was good because obviously I feel like you're not going to win in a race against Ozzy unless like you swim a lot or like whatever. Who knows how fast Ozzy is, but he's like good in the water, so who knows.
Yeah.
So yeah, during like the digging part to like dig out the like puzzle pieces, we see Caleb digging again, and I'm like, LMAO, let's like get himself medevaced again, please. That be hee XD.
Yeah, I was kind of like, ooh, this must be bringing out bad memories. But they had a much, much, much smaller square to be digging in. So, and I wonder if maybe that was Jeff Probst learning from his past mistakes. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was funny. I was like, haha, that'd be funny if you got medevaced again and didn't go to tribal. LOL. So then we see Sari and Zeke on the Blue Tribes puzzle, and then we see Sandra and Sierra on Orange Tribes puzzle. Jeff says that Sierra has done the puzzle before, and I'm like, damn. So now if Sierra's team loses, like, she's got the whole puzzle thing and the whole name dropping thing, which I don't know. And then Sierra gets a confessional right before like right after the challenge ends, right before the commercial, and usually that is like the death knell for people. Like if they get that confessional spot, usually means they're going home. But I was like, you know, maybe producers will like try to throw a curveball at us because like you don't want to be too predictable.
I don't know. I feel like Sierra, they always bring stuff back to her mom. Like she had the confessional, and she was like, I did this before on the season with my mom. Varner was like, she voted out her mom. Like, can we give this a rest? Like, I get it. It's important that she voted out her mom.
Yeah, like that was so many seasons ago. I feel like Sierra, she is basically known for voting out her mom, forcing a rock draw, but I feel like Sierra has so much more depth than just that. So I mean, it's sort of like sucky for Sierra.
So talked about what happened before Tribal with Michaela blowing up, Sierra trying to get Tony or Caleb, eventually failing pretty miserably, etc. Sierra at Tribal Council. Phone is muted if you're.
Oh yeah, I was coughing because I'm like low-key sick and I didn't want the coughing to show up on camera because then I would like switch from you to me coughing, so I was muted. But no, yeah, tribal council. I thought it was like a interesting like tribal council location. It's like in an old like lighthouse thing, which like I feel like hasn't really been seen before. I don't know.
Yeah, normally they have it in like a elevated hut type thing. That was a very vague hand motion, but I like the tribal council location as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, they ramp up the theme again, talking about game changers, blah blah blah. Hopefully, they don't beat it to like a dead horse, like the whole millennials versus Gen X theme. I don't know. I think what's really interesting was like the whole like debate or like talk about who they saw on TV versus who they're seeing in the game, which I think is really interesting, especially if like Alyssa and I like ever play Survivor or something like that. It's like we've grown up watching these people, and I feel like a lot of players talk about that, especially like with big name people like Kelly Wigglesworth. Like you grew up watching like that and like seeing her and stuff like that, then to like actually be playing with them. So I don't know, it's really interesting, like the whole concept of like TV versus like when you're playing with them real life.
Yeah, I feel like the whole TV versus real life thing is something that we talk about a lot on our podcast, and how like it's really easy for us to sit here in our dorms and judge all of these people when really like we probably couldn't do half shit they do.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's interesting. One of the other things that tribal council was like who to vote out. Should we keep this tribe strong or like that aspect of Survivor? And I feel like I don't know, recently like Survivor has sort of been shifting, so it's not like sort of rigged towards like the smaller female going home earlier. But I feel like Sierra being a smaller female this time, as well as being a great strategic player and like good at puzzles and stuff like that, like definitely led to her downfall. Haley said loose lips sink ships. I mean, is that a Taylor Swift quote?
I mean, but it was a thing before Taylor Swift sang it, friend. So
LOL.
Rachel,
But
basic white girl.
OMG. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like we saw the whole Sierra boot coming. We didn't, like, it was either Sierra or Michaela, I feel like, as, like, the editors were trying to get us to see. And I don't know, I felt bad for Sierra. She started to tear up when, like, her name was being read. And I'm like, it must suck to be first out, but, like, what you gonna do?
I mean, someone always has to be first out, though, so.
Yeah.
I still feel bad, though. I always feel bad for the first boot, unless they were, like, stupid.
Yeah,
So
especially on like an all returnee season, like it must be a bummer because like you want to play with those big name people.
yeah, I mean, I feel like Sierra kind of got her chance to do that in second chances, so it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. So moving on to the second episode that we saw this in this 2-hour premiere. Wow. We see Tony trying to make like a power alliance. And I thought this was a really good strategy. Tony realizes, you know, he has a target on his back. He is one of the best players of Survivor. And so he needs to bring in other good like players of Survivor, like who have targets. So it's sort of like the meat shield thing Jeremy talked about his season. And I was like, yeah, like that's a smart idea. So Tony wants to do a Tony, Aubrey, Malcolm, Caleb, Sandra 5-person alliance because there's 9 people left. You need 5 out of the 4. And I was like, yes, I really want to see this like power alliance work out. All of these players like playing together would be great. But I mean, like, I think the biggest truth of this episode was when Sandra and Tony are talking and they are like, the winner needs to sit with 3 winners at the end to win. And I think this is like true, straight up.
Yeah, I feel like this alliance was like a good idea, but doomed to failure from the beginning. To get people who have big egos to work together just doesn't work. And I feel like all of the people that Tony tried to get together were a little bit egotistical. Like, even if they're not like as egotistical as Tony was sometimes, like preseason thing, he has a little bit of a like self-congratulatory streak. I think that Aubrey sees herself as a strategic player, perhaps a little bit too much, like might underestimate other aspects of the game and stuff. Just like we saw this alliance fall apart pretty quickly. I feel like if you look actively, have.
No, yeah, I feel that. I feel like you're saying, I feel like these 5 people definitely sort of have their like head up their ass sometimes. Like Sandra, she's like, I'm queen, you know, adios. Caleb thinks he's like the greatest of all time for doing absolutely nothing. Malcolm, I'm fine with Malcolm, but he's like, I'm like charming, you know, and I know it. Obviously, like you're saying about Tony and Aubrey. So like these guys are like a little bit cocky, but like some of them are like too cocky for their own good. You know, I feel like a right ratio of cocky to like humble is good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, speaking of, in the live chat right now, we're talking about chickens. And the next thing on the agenda is Ty and the chicken. I think Ty needs to not with the whole chicken thing. I feel like he is giving a lot of food to the chickens and it's peeving everyone off.
I just feel like the chicken thing is one thing that you can do once. Like, it was charming the first time. The second time, it just looks like, it just looks kind of affected and like he's trying too hard to like be nice or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like definitely wrong. Like, oh, you know, this like cute dude wants to save the chicken. It's the first time Mark the chicken, you know, a chicken has ever lived throughout the whole season of Survivor. Like, it's cute, it's endearing, it's good TV. Second time, I'm like, I don't need to see you like feed the chicken and let them like run loose and everything like that. Like, I don't know. I don't really care. But I mean, I think the cute thing of this of this chicken scene was when Brad Culpepper wants to name one of them like the dark-haired one, Monica, after his wife. I was like, that's pretty cute. I think Brad is going far.
Naming something that you intend to eat after the woman you're married to might not be the best idea.
Well, there's that side of it. But it's cute that you're thinking of her.
Sure. It's cute.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know.
Right now.
I don't think the whole chicken thing, like, I don't want to see them like fighting over whether to let it live or die. Like, I don't know. That I feel like that was a waste of time. Like they're wasting good screen time where you could be doing strategy or something like about Ty feeding his chickens. Like I don't need to see it.
Yeah, I feel like it might be foreshadowing the fact that Ty's chicken thing is going to get him in trouble eventually. But I don't know.
Yeah, that might be it. So, speaking of Tony again, we see Tony go off in the middle of the night to build his underground bunker, and I'm like, damn, you know, Tony is legitimately already going crazy. He can't sleep. He's going to go build his underground bunker in the wee hours of the night. And then Troyzan and Sandra come out, and he overhears Troyzan and Sandra talking, and this was when all shit breaks loose. Because now Tony is angry at Sandra and they have beef, with which I'm like, no, I wanted to see you guys work together and now it's all falling through the cracks.
I feel like that's one thing about Tony. It's like he legitimately can't hold himself back. Sort of better to pretend that he hadn't heard anything and just. But he had to confront Sandra about it. And I was just, take a deep breath, honey.
Yeah, like honestly, I personally feel like the whole Tony versus Sandra thing is happening too soon, voting out one of the big name players. And we see in the preview for next week that was just posted today, like when the Orange Tribe walks up and Jeff is like, you're getting your first look at the new Orange Tribe. Tony voted out at the last tribal council. Everyone is like, oh my God, like Tony, one of these big name players, is gone. And I'm like, I feel like I don't know. I feel like Sandra can handle herself. She works and she was able to get like all of these people to follow her. Like we didn't even see anything from Caleb or Malcolm showing that they would lean towards a Tony vote off, but like Sandra was able to persuade everyone. But I'm afraid that like, you know, everyone knows Sandra's like hella good at the game. Like she's not gonna last very long since like her number one biggest like threat competitor guy, Tony, is gone now.
Yeah, I feel like maybe in her head, Sandra thought that getting out Tony would like solidify her position on the tribe, but if anything, it just got rid of the other person that she needed to keep around as a shield. And like it showed that you can get a winner voted off without any ramifications, which I don't think is going to be good for either her or JT. Just because like with the first winner already gone, it's kind of like.
Yeah, which I'm really hoping it's not going to end up being like a all-star season where like they just vote out all the winners because like they're like it's our time to shine. But I'm like, I don't know, you know?
Yeah. But I don't think that this group of people is going to like necessarily take the same approach as they did in All-Stars, just because in All-Stars being a winner was like a more, it was the only the 8th season, and like obviously the ratio of winners to non-winners like hasn't changed because there's only one winner every season, surprise guys. But like having 3 winners on that season and having all of the winners like have won, I guess you could say in like a legitimate way, like there was no like good winners or whatever. I feel like that definitely helped their case, but it's still going to put a target on their back, but not just because they're winners, but because they've proven that they can play the game and they can play it well.
No, yeah, I definitely feel that. So I guess like going to the immunity challenge, we see when Jeff brings in the losing tribe and he's like, Sierra, first one voted out. We see Brad Culpepper like, oh. And I'm like, dang, you know, Brad and Sierra were both on Blood versus Water together. You know, they probably like they both wanted to like at least I feel like Brad wanted to work with Sierra because you know that's like a familiar face. You want to work with people like who you know. So like her getting voted out, I guess, like he was like, oh.
Yeah, I just feel like overall the second episode I feel like was a bit more interesting than the first, just because we already got to spend some time with the players, so there wasn't as much like establishing needed. Like I feel like a lot of the first episode was spent establishing like who still had beef with each other and stuff. But I feel like this episode was a lot better in that like the relationships were allowed to like develop a little more naturally, and we weren't like shoved like an entire rivalry like in our faces. Like Sandra Tony kind of happened because of something that happened within the episode, not something that happened 8 years ago. But the challenge I feel like was really interesting this episode, just because like people seemed to, after the challenge, be talking about it like Jeff hadn't fully prepared them for what was happening with that huge snake thing.
The huge ass snake was like real funny. Someone was like it was 600 to 700 pounds. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that correctly.
I thought it was 400.
Okay, so it was like a heavy ass snake though, like in the water, like lifting it up.
Several hundred pounds.
Yes, like lifting it up in the water, dragging down on a balance beam, which we know for a fact, like people can't do balance beams normally because they don't practice it beforehand. But while carrying a heavy ass snake, we see people falling in the water. And like, I don't know, I thought it was really funny during this, like, immunity challenge. Jeff Varner is like being a total freaking goober as per usual. Like he doesn't even get in the water like the whole way on like the little cage that they're in. Like he can't lift it up or anything, and then he's like hanging on to the one end of it, and I'm like, dude, Jeff, what you doing?
Yeah, I didn't hear anything what you just said because of poor connection, but I'm gonna assume it was a good thing. So
oh no.
Agree with what you said, Rachel. Hopefully there were no questions in there for me.
LOL. I mean, yeah, I think Suri sitting out, I was like, oh no, if they lose the challenge, like Suri will probably be the one to go home because she's sitting out of the challenge. So I was like glad that Blue won the challenge. And it was like tense at the end. Malcolm like hella caught up for Orange team. And we see Sierra Dawn Thomas and JT like tag team the ring toss, but Malcolm was literally like on fire.
I feel like it was kind of akin to that time, and I forget which season it was, but they had the professional basketball player like shooting hoops, and then like someone came from behind and it was like they were one shot away or something, and it's like no one can get mad because the other person started with like such a big lead, but if you win, it's like you're the hero. So I feel like trying to come from behind like that is always a good thing unless you mess it up.
Yeah. So, I mean, the immunity challenge, it was fun. I don't really have anything else written down for it. I think overall, like, it was an interesting challenge. I don't know. What else is there to talk about the challenge?
It was a challenge. It was good. 10 out of 10.
Blue team wins. And then, so Orange is going back to Tribal Council again. And we see the whole Tony v. Sandra debate. So basically, like, Sandra sort of wanted to split the vote between Tony and Aubrey at first. I feel like I didn't think Caleb and Malcolm would flip. Like, it was a, like, fight for the throne of who could be the king/queen. And Tony is like, you know, we need one more vote to get at Sandra. Like, let's get Michaela. Michaela hates to lose. Like, we can, like, use her. So I was like, I thought it'd be a Sandra vote out. I was really, really surprised when it was a Tony vote out.
Yeah, I think that I would have been more pleased with the Sandra vote out, I feel like, than a Tony vote out. But I feel like both of them were, like, legitimate reasons you would vote out either one of them. So I don't think that I could be particularly mad at Michaela, especially because Sandra didn't end up getting like any votes at all. It was 2 Aubrey and 8 Tony, I believe. So,
or yeah, 7.
Yeah, I can count. And I feel like there must have been something else that happened that made Tony kind of abandon his whole idea of going against Sandra. So.
Okay, so yeah, like going into tribal council, I think the votes was really, really interesting. I think Tony was very smart to vote Aubrey to make it a tie. Like, if it were to be like, if Sandra's team were like actually splitting the votes, say there's 9 people, so it'd be 5-4. If Tony voted Aubrey, he could make it 5-5. But like that doesn't make sense. But Tony voted for Aubrey in order to try to force a tie. So then him and Aubrey would both be safe, and someone else would have to draw a rock because of the whole no revote thing. So I thought that was like really, really smart for Tony to do. Like that just shows like how both he and Sandra are really thinking. And Sandra voted for Aubrey also, just in case Tony did happen to find an immunity idol, so that Aubrey would have at least 1 vote. So then Sandra, if like Tony voted for Sandra, like Aubrey would also have a vote, you know? So I was like, that's really, really smart. So I feel like that just goes to show like how good Sandra and Tony are at this game. They're like thinking 3 steps ahead, because like Tony votes for his own alliance member, like just to try to force a tie so Tony wouldn't go home. Sandra's like thinking ahead, if Tony finds an idol, like I need to vote for someone else so like I don't have the most votes. I'm like, geez, this is crazy.
I mean, Sandra seemed pretty confident that like Aubrey wasn't going to go home, like when she was like saying her little thing at the voting booth. But I think it was kind of interesting because it seemed to me like she was trying to give like a warning to Aubrey, like watch out who you align with because I'm watching you.
No, yeah, like during tribal council, like the questions and like the answers that Jeff Probst were asking and like, the answers people were giving, it definitely felt like it was leaning towards a Tony vote out. Malcolm and Jeff Varner both say they like, I don't know, they say, or I mean, it looked like it was leaning towards a Sandra vote out, because Malcolm and Jeff are both like, you know, I believe Tony has changed, you know, I haven't seen him looking for idols, stuff like that. So I was like, damn, like Sandra, like if there's being so buddy towards Tony, I was like, Malcolm and Caleb aren't voting like Tony out, and then they ended up doing it. I was like, wow, we didn't get to see enough, producers.
Yeah. But I feel like time restraints and something like that, I feel like we could watch the raw footage and still feel like we hadn't seen enough, just because there's so much going on in their heads, especially when you're making an important decision like that.
So, I mean, we see Tony get voted out, and we see Sandra be very, very vocal at the end of tribal council. She's like, queen stays queen, like bye, Tony, like say hi to Sierra for me. And I was like, damn, like, girl, you're being a little like too, like, I don't know, like cocky, like arrogant about the vote off, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't think that Sandra winning a 3rd time is a possibility, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like, Tony said it, like everyone would be suckers if they let Sandra keep going past like mid-merge, maybe, you know, because Sandra like knows like what she's doing. And like when Sandra is like to Tony, say hi to Sierra for me, I thought it'd be really, really funny if Tony was like I don't need to say hi to her for you because you'll say hi to her next week. Like that would have been such a good one-liner.
Oh, like, funny man. I'm sure that he probably like thought about that as he was walking away.
No, like I don't know. On one hand, like why don't people blow up everyone else's game like when they get voted out? Like if you're, I don't know, I'd be like, this person has an idol, like this person said this, like fuck y'all for voting me out, like all hell break loose.
I don't know, man, because like normally the information you have is only from your alliance members, and then people might also be like, oh, they're only bitter because they got voted out. That might not actually be the truth. What would be great would be if you lied about it. If you were like, oh yeah, so-and-so has an idol when they didn't really. Would vote for them, flushing out the idol, the flush.
That would be good. Like the whole Tony and Kagayan giving the clue to like Jeremiah, but it was like a fake clue. Like you could totally be like, when you're voted out, like this person has an idol, and then like totally put a target on their back, or like at least make people wary of that person. That'd be really interesting. Damn, Alyssa, we just got to get on the show. So, I guess that is the wrap for this season, this premiere. Let's talk about next time. I mean, previews, we know that we are going from 2 tribes to 3 tribes, and this is going to be real interesting, I feel like. I hope it goes well for I hope no one gets screwed over by a tribe swap, because that sometimes happens. But like on one of the previews for the season, or for this next episode, they show like the new Nuku tribe like catching goats on their island, and then like we see like Jeff Varner like, oh, like, no, I can't, and then like Malcolm's holding the goat and the goat is like screaming, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be so sad if they kill the goat.
I just think it's funny because the people always find some sort of animal on the island that they want to eat. I don't know. Have you ever had goat meat?
No.
I feel like it would be really gamey. But I think that I hope that no one gets screwed over, but I think it's kind of inevitable when you swap. But mostly I just hope that it gives everyone like a new burst of energy strategy-wise, so that we don't fall into the same ruts. Ozzy versus Suri thing. Like, I kind of don't want to see that again. I don't want to see like Sandra versus JT or something like that either.
No, yeah, I definitely feel that. So we have one tribe Alyssa and I couldn't find, like the other two tribes being spoiled, but the one new tribe is the new Nuku. It's seen in that goat scene of the preview that we were talking about. So it is JT, Sandra, Malcolm, Aubrey, Jeff Varner, and Michaela. What are your thoughts on this?
I think they might have a little bit of a trouble as far as like, just because Sandra isn't that great, Jeff isn't that great, but like JT, Malcolm, Michaela, maybe they can pull one out for them. I think that tribe will be very good at puzzles though.
True. If they put like JT, Malcolm, Aubrey, Michaela on the physical, and then Jeff Varner and Sandra on puzzles, I think that they could pull it off maybe. But yeah, you're definitely right. I feel like compared to maybe like Brad Culpepper, Troy Zan, Ozzy, like this tribe is lacking maybe on the physical department.
Yeah, but I don't know. We've seen time and time again that like physical stuff isn't always the most important thing. Like if a tribe can't work together, it doesn't matter how strong they are. Like they can still like lose challenges real quick. Like we saw that with the Braun tribe continuing to go home over and over again. So I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, on this tribe, we see Sandra, Malcolm, and Aubrey were all on the same tribe previously. And then JT, Jeff, and Michaela were on the, like, previous same tribe as well. And then also JT and Sandra know each other from Heroes versus Villains. And I feel like JT and Malcolm could bond really well because they're both, like, attractive, like, fit males. Like, I think that would be good. I mean, Sandra, I feel like she can work with Michaela because of the previous tribe, but I feel like Sandra's very wary of Michaela being a firecracker. And then, I mean, we'll see if Sandra and Aubrey can work together, because Sandra just did write Aubrey's name down. But I mean, hopefully they realize, like, I don't know, like it's a game, it's strategy, like they should work together now. But
I mean,
I guess we'll see.
Aubrey also doesn't know that it was Sandra who wrote her name down, so.
That's true. I guess you could think it's someone else.
Yeah. I think that it's just going to be interesting to see whether like the blue versus orange thing happens, because like one of the tribes is going to be unequal as far as like the amount of people on the blue team, the amount of people on the orange team, and it's like,
oh yeah,
will people take that as an opportunity to like pick off people in a way that like makes logical sense but might like not ruffle as many feathers?
Yeah, because I feel like recently in recent seasons, whenever it's like a 4-2 like majority for the 4 and like minority for the 2, it's usually someone from the foursome that goes home, because like the people, like there's cracks and they want to bring in the 2 to vote out someone they dislike on their 4, which will be interesting to see if like that trend goes this season as well. But I feel like on this new Nuku tribe, I don't know, we didn't mention Jeff Varner at all. I feel like he could be the odd one out, or he could be the one like used to make like a 4-2 split. Because I feel like he's just there. He doesn't really like know these people. I feel like Jeff and Michaela and Aubrey could get along because Jeff seems to like be friendly with the firecracker people like Abby Maria, and like Michaela sort of like that. And like, I don't know, I feel like Jeff and Aubrey could get along also.
I feel like that the like comparison to Abby Maria might be a reason that Jeff would not want to go in an alliance with Michaela, just because like he saw where that left him last time. So
that's also true. Like he knows, like pairing with the firecrackers, I feel like that's why Sandra is so wary of like people like Michaela, because like these like people are so like hot, cold, right, left, like you cannot predict, but then you can also predict them. Like it's weird.
Yeah. So I'm really excited for next I was going to say next week, but it's actually this week.
In 2 days, because we're podcasting on a Monday. Sorry, guys, we said Friday, but now it's Monday.
I said this
try
was
to podcast.
Happen.
Yeah,
I said
we'll try to podcast
as early as possible, and we did.
Yeah, we'll try to podcast early this week. Alyssa, when do you go on spring break?
I go on spring break this Friday.
Okay, so mine's like the week after you. Yeah. So, I mean, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you have any like comments or questions, leave them down below, because the live chat will end after the video is published. You know, we love Survivor, and we cannot believe it's season 34. This is so crazy. Like, hiatus is over and we are back.
Yay! So if you have anything you want to say, if you want to yell at us, if you want to tell us how great we are, do so in the comments down below. Like Rachel said, remember to like, comment, subscribe. We love you, and we'll see you next week.